circuit. You need to give the voltage or excitation steps circuit connected to the MEMS sensor or actuators. So you need this model to work along with an ROIC, and it needs a system to work together, right? So that is where this MEMS plus comes into picture. Here you are doing an advanced simulations, taking this MEMS plus MEMS sensor models. So the advantage here is the model that you create here can be taken into MATLAB for system level simulations, and you can take this model into Cadence for circuit simulations. So generally earlier practice how they do ROIC for MEMS sensor is they create some kind of a lookup table kind of thing where the for the so and so input what is the output, and they used to take that as a reference for modeling their IC circuits. But now with this software, what you can do is you can directly run both the MEMS sensor along with your electronics, which means that the data coming is not a black box reference for you. It is a direct MEMS plus model running simulation along with your electronics in the third party like Cadence or MATLAB environment. So it is a there is a difference between Coventor and MEMS plus. Coventor works on FEM technique where you use the meshing and other things, right? So here it is purely based on a behavioral modeling kind of. So it is higher order FEA where you have different kinds of components basically. There is a beam, there is a plate, there is a flexible components. So you use them to construct the model. So we'll see in the presentation. So if you see here, there are different kinds of levels of components here. In the first level, you have some rigid shapes, flexible shapes, beams. So using these components, you can create any kind of geometry basically. So you can also do add or subtract Boolean operations to construct the model. So each one will have its own behavior so that user should be aware of what components to be used for their designs. And in the second level, if you see here, there are electrodes, side caps, combs, and other things, right? So these things you can add under the first level component, which means that you can add these components so that you can create a electrode or capacitance in between these first and second level components. And you also can create a different combs or anything. Basically, you are getting all these outputs from the design from the second level components. And the third level components you have is like damping, pressure loads, fluid chambers. So we use all these components for different various designs, and we build the 3D model and do the simulations. Next, so this is how the tabs availability in MEMS Plus. The first one is material
Sir,
database.
sorry to disturb you.
Yes, sir.
Can you please put it to slideshow, sir, so that it will look bigger?
I think it is in slideshow already.
Oh, is it, sir? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it is coming, sir, now. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So if you see here, there are 4 tabs, right? The first one is material database tab, where you have input of different materials. You can store them, or you can create new materials, or you have existing materials available in the installation part of the software. You can also customize those existing properties, or you can add these new materials into it. And if you compare with Coventor and this thing, both has the material database, but the extension is different here. So both are independent things. Here the extension is .mmdb, means material database. There it is MPD, material database. Okay. And the second tab is process editor here. Here you create the process flow. So similar to what you see in the process editor in Coventor, here also you have a deposition step and edge steps and mask references. So you add the different steps. So here, how you model process steps is from bottom to top approach of the your MEMS cross section. If you take a die cross section, if you see from bottom to top, substrate to the topest layer, what you already have, that is what we are modeling in the process editor. So here for each step you have to deposit step you have to define what is the thickness, what is the material that layer is of, and other things. For straight cut, you have to define what is the mask, what is the depth of etching, and all of those pattern structures you have to define. And finally, a release step where your MEMS structure will be released for to make it hanging or free to move. So the difference comes compared to Coventor is from the third tab here, component library. So in Coventor, what you have is there you have the 2D layout where you use you are linking 2D layout with the process and material database to construct the model, right? The 3D solid model. So here you can do that. The main advantage here is here you have a components basically. So these components are fully parametric, which means that if you are using these components with the global variables, you can change any parameter of this component, length, width, thickness, whatever you want to vary, you can vary. And not just that. So basically, whatever you are seeing, all these three things, right? First, second, and third tabs, all this information comes from the foundry. So the material information comes from the foundry, the process flow will be given by the foundry, and these components will have a DRC rules. This comes from the foundry. So this information you can directly feed in the software so that you will avoid a lot of mistakes on your designs, what you are doing. Okay, so all this information, before you are designing any MEMS device, you have to gather this information. So there are multiple foundries available in India if you want to fabricate the MEMS device. Like for colleges and all, you have Sense, IISc Bangalore, IIT Madras, you have Bombay, IIT Bombay, you have a foundry. For defense side, you have foundry on Sitar, Bangalore, and space side, you have a foundries at SCL Bangalore. You can also explore multi-wafer sharing process where it is a MEMS process available abroad where your designs can be shared along with other designers. So if you are following the same standard process, you can share the wafer for fabrication. So all these PDKs, what I mentioned, right? All these foundries will have some design rules. What is the design rules means? Each foundry will have the different machinery and they will have the limitations of what they can fabricate. The minimum gaps they can achieve, the minimum thickness they can achieve.
So just because we still don't know the audience experience with MEMS. So anybody who has visited a MEMS foundry in India? Dr. Manjunath ji, anybody from the audience who have visited a foundry?
I myself visited the foundry.
Okay. Okay. What about other participants in this session?
Yeah,
Anybody?
any other participants who visited the foundries?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have executed one project at IAC Bangalore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please talk about that, ma'am.
Yes, I think it will be nice. You can just share your experience that what you have seen in the foundry, because you would have seen that yellow room, the litho room. Okay. Then you would have seen the diffusion, etching. So what was your experience in the foundry?
That experience was really nice. There is actually both class 10 and class 100 clean rooms provided. For litho, they are using class 10.
Okay. But I don't know whether the audience here understands the difference between class 10, 100, 1000, 10,000. Would you also like to educate them on what is the different class of clean rooms?
That depends upon the amount of purity. That means in class 10 clean room, the amount of the number of contaminant particles would be less than 10, and that contaminant particle radius is around 0.5 micron radius. So that much purity, that is what is being demanded by this fabrication process.
Exactly. So wherever you are handling the wafer, okay, you need a very high clean room class. Wherever for the test facilities, you don't need a very high class. Like you can actually do tests with 1,000 or 10,000 also. Okay. Hello. Can you hear?
Some connection problem. She has left the session. I think she will come back, sir.
Okay. So that is good, sir. Like people
Hello.
has some exposure on this. Yeah. You able to hear me, sir? Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you,
Yeah,
sir.
sir. Yeah. Maybe some connection problem. She left, it seems. She will come back, sir.
Okay, no issue, sir.
Yeah.
No issue.
Yeah.
So all these process things, right, sir? Whatever is she explained things, and each machinery, as I told you, will have some limitations because the machinery is different in each foundry. So that rules that decides by this machinery, you can input them here in the component library. So you can add what is the minimum which it should be, the gap should be, and you can also define a range as a constraints in a components where the value should not be less than this and greater than that. You can also do that, and some standard conditions also you can log the futures. So all these design rules you can set it in this component library, and you can make these components customizable for that particular PDK. And once you make this modification, you can export this as a PDK, and you can share this model to anybody who use the same process, so that they need not always create all these materials, process, and components. Okay, directly import that MPDK file, which is created in the beginning, and you can use it. Okay, so after this, the next tab will be Innovator. In Innovator is where you create the 3D modeling, basically. So whatever you customize the components, use that components, connect them together, and you create the geometry in Innovator. Once the 3D model is created in Innovator, you create, suppose let's say RS switch or gyroscope or accelerometer. Then you go to the simulator tab. Here, the same model what you create here in Innovator is available in simulator. It will be updated there. So here you add different kinds of analysis to that particular model and run the simulations and analyze the results. So that is the flow that happens here. Next. Yeah, so if you see the structure here, this is a butterfly structure. Even though if it's not a device here, this is to show that how a complex geometry can be made using these components. Click on next. Yeah, so if you see here, there are multiple geometries connected together. A beam, a circular plate, rigid plate, quadrilateral plate, pi plates. So all these components are added and connected together so that it creates a geometry. The green dots what you add here, see in the bottom butterfly, these are mechanical connectors that are connected together. And the orange dots what you see is a floating connectors. And the gray dot that you see in the rigid plate is a fixed connector. These are all the boundary conditions that you can assign. So when you run the simulation, you can see on the right side, since the center one rigid plate is fixed with the gray, what you see. You can see in the butterfly, the center one is fixed and the wings are moving because these are floating and mechanically connected there. So even though these kind of complex geometries also can be made in the MEMS+. Next. Yeah. So here, if you see this on the left side, you can create entire design of this MEMS model in MEMS+. If you see that geometry, what you are seeing animation there, it is a 3-axis gyroscope from Murata. Murata is a company who designed this MEMS sensors, and this is the design entirely done using MEMS+ software. Okay, so once you finish the modeling in MEMS+, if you see in the middle, you have many options, right? You can integrate the software with them for the different kinds of simulation capabilities. You can do simulations in MEMS+ simulator. You can take it to MATLAB. So in MATLAB, you have two sections again here. MATLAB for a scripting and Simulink for GUI based. So you can do the simulations of the same MEMS Plus model in MATLAB and Simulink both. And the next one, you can also take this model to Cadence Virtuoso for IC simulations. Or Simulink ROM, right? So the higher order FEM model, what we have in MEMS Plus, you can further reduce the degrees of freedom so that you can make the simulations much more faster. So if you export it to Verilog A is the format that is supported in Cadence, and Simulink ROM is a format that's supported in MATLAB. So Verilog A, suppose you have a design and you want to keep that a copyright. You doesn't want to share how my beams are connected, how my plate is there in the design, all those things. But you want to share the design to ROIC guys for the IC designing. So what you can do, you can create this reduced order modeling using Verilog A. So what is Verilog A file? It is just a text file, right? If you open and see the model, you just see the text there with the values or numerical values, whatever it is. So they cannot really see what is your design. So you can keep your design protected, and you can share the design to ROIC designers for the IC designing. Once the simulation is done using any of these options available in the middle, the results will be created, right? That results you can open back in the MEMS Plus window. It opens in a Scene 3D. You can visualize the results.
Yeah, so some of you must be wondering, what is this ROIC? Okay. See, for the MEMS as a device, okay, without the readout electronics is useless. So you can make great pressure sensor, accelerometer, gyros, but if you don't have the right electronics, okay, then it's of no use. It's like incomplete product. So now, is anybody in the audience is familiar with what is electronic design? Manjunath ji?
Yeah, for any MEMS design, we need electronic circuitry as a readout circuit. So
Correct.
without which we cannot make the device to work. Correct.
Exactly.
So I think we need a readout electronic circuitry in MEMS devices.
Exactly. So when
Yeah.
you see, if I break down a MEMS development, okay, one is obviously your sensor dies, okay, which is a critical part. But then that's not the only thing in a MEMS development. So it goes beyond the die. So what you have is, along with the die, you also need to design a very strong electronics, okay, and then you have to do a very good packaging of the device. So the thumb rule with MEMS is the 60% of the effort goes in packaging. So which is 20% of die, 20% electronics, and 60% packaging. Anyways, in this session, we'll not talk about the packaging part. Our focus is only to tell you more on the die of the sensor die. Okay. But at the same time, I want the audience to be aware that what it takes when you develop a pressure sensor or any MEMS product. We'll continue with the session now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And this ROIC, right? It is every MEMS design will have the different ROIC because the range of device that works for different applications is different. So it is a customized ROIC that you use for the designs what you create in MEMS. Okay. So as I told, when you are modeling, right, we are using the components. You can also do that using a GDS import. So GDS is what? It is a 2D layout format. It's a standard format across any ASIC or MEMS industry they use for manufacturing. So if you have a GDS file, 2D layout file of your 3D model, you can take that. Yeah, next. Here, this is what 2D geometry that you create. There's a module called layout editor along with the Coventor bundle. There you can draw any kind of 2D geometry. And once you draw the geometry there, you can either import the geometry into MEMS Plus. So what you are doing here, importing geometry in the sense, the 2D layout will be mapped along with each component. Suppose there is a certain, that red layer in between, if you see there, that is corresponding to some beam. Another layer is corresponding to some plate, or layers corresponding to some electrode. So you will map these layers to the components. Once it mapped and create construct 3D model option, there is an option. When you use that, it creates automatically 3D model using the components and the layer information. Okay. Once the 3D model is built and the 3D model can be exported to CoventorWare also. So it is tightly integrated, the CoventorWare software and MEMS Plus. You need not create the same model again from the beginning in CoventorWare. The same model that you have in MEMS Plus can be exported directly into CoventorWare work directory. Okay. Yeah. So compared to your conventional FEA, what is conventional FEA? What we do is CoventorWare or any Abacus solvers or ANSYS or COMSOL, any software what you use is a FEA finite element method, right? So those takes a huge time for simulations generally because it depends on the meshing. Every node of the mesh, it has to solve the partial differential equations to find the results, right? But here in MEMS Plus, it is component based or your behavioral model based. So here you don't have all those things. That is the reason why, since it is higher order FEA, the simulations are 100 times faster compared to your conventional FEA. Next. And further, when you are making this into reduced order modeling, ROM, either it's a Verilog A or MROM, further it reduces another 100 times faster simulations. Next. And finally, compared to your conventional FEA, you almost get quite a fast simulations, like 10,000 times faster simulations in MEMS Plus. Next. Yeah, you can see the difference on the left. It is an FEA. On the right side, it's a MEMS Plus finite element analysis using components here. So there is no restriction on the left side. If you see the difference here, you can create any kind of geometry and you have different kinds of meshes available there. It can be a brick type of element, or it can be tetrahedron, or it is a shell elements. So depending on the simulation solver that you use these mesh types. And when you mesh the model, if you see here, it is around some 10,000 to 10 million degrees of freedom. For any simulation, it has to solve all those degrees of freedom. That's the reason why the simulations are very, very time consuming here.
So some details on the meshing will be very useful. What kind of machines? Different types of machine. Do they name it?
It is done in the morning.
Okay.
So on the right side, if you see, it is a component based. Here there is no meshing involved. But how does it work is like if you take a beam will have different models. It is a Bernoulli beam, Timoshenko beam, it's a shell beam or brick beam. So when user should be aware of what component to use. After that, when you use those components to build a model, you can do this directly from the MEMS Plus GUI, or you can also do this complete modeling and simulation from scratch using MATLAB scripting directly without opening any MEMS Plus software. When you integrate MEMS Plus with MATLAB, you can do complete modeling and simulation, everything in the MATLAB interface itself. And once you build the model using MEMS Plus, right, if you compare to the left side here, you have only 10 to 1000 degrees of freedom. That's the reason why the simulations are much more faster. Okay. Yeah. Almost similar comparison here, but if you see in the last points here on the left and right, the main advantage that you are getting here. So generally the single device morning session, if you could have remembered, some simulations took quite a time, right? That too, those are optimized models for the training session. But if real models, if you take with the complex geometries and the finer meshing sizes, for steady state itself, simulations takes time. If you are doing a transient simulations, let us say, what is transient simulation? It's a dynamic simulations where the input is with respect to time and the output that you see is also with respect to time. So these simulations take quite a huge time. So sometimes it runs for days together to finish the simulations for complex models. Okay, but here if you are doing the same model in MEMS Plus, you can say that it's runs much more faster, right, compared to your FEA models. So it is much more feasible here. And compared to your CoventorWare here, you don't have different solvers selection for each type of simulation. Here you have a single solver which takes care of everything. You need not select a particular solver here. Okay, and the main advantage what you are getting by doing all this is the last 2 points. Compatible with MATLAB or Simulink for system level designing and modeling, and compatible with SPICE simulators like Cadence or some analog SPICE tools, so that you can do the complete system modeling and IC modeling for your MEMS sensor. Next. Yeah. So you might be worrying, thinking, okay, it is running so fast with less degrees of freedom, but this might be having a lesser, the results may not be accurate or something. For that, you can see the slide here. Here, the example what we are showing is a comb structure where you have 2 fixed combs. Yellow, what you see is a 2 fixed combs. The green, what you see is a movable comb. So using a BM solver method, what is BM? Boundary element method, where we do in FEM technique, using FEM technique. So when we move that green comb between these fixed combs, yellow things, what happens? The electrostatic force will be different, right? So when you are moving on the right side graph, you can notice at each location, what is the electrostatic force in Z direction. So the blue dots, what you see is FEM results, and the red line, what you see is a MEMS plus result. You can see the results are closely matched with your FEM results. Okay, on the bottom graph, you can see it's a electrostatic force on X direction, the comparison between FEM and MEMS plus. Okay, here you can see that there may be slight variation compared to your FEM model, but that will be with less than the 5% of the deviation. Here, our main goal is without losing the accuracy, we want to take this model for the system level simulation and IC integration, right? So, which we cannot do using FEM approach. Okay, next. So, as I told you, the models are fully parametric. You can see in this model, if you take a comb, the thickness, the seed dimensions, sidewall angles, all these things can be parameterized. And this is the example of Monte Carlo study. So this, they do a simulation for a yield measurement, basically. So number of samples, they vary different kinds of parameters like dimensions, thickness, sidewall angles, and other things. Whatever you are seeing image here is a Z-axis gyroscope. Okay. So he wants to measure on the sense direction what is the frequency it is, how these dimensions or parameters change are affecting the sense mode frequency of the gyroscope. So if that is 1000 samples, you are running the simulation. Next, here if you see here, it took only 7 seconds per each sample. Less than 2 hours of time, you have run almost 1,000 designs. Okay. So in MEMS Plus, you also have an option called subschematic. So what is subschematic? If anybody works on layout, can understand easily 2D layouts or mask making. Generally, you can create multiple cells of geometry, and you can refer each cell into another cell as a hierarchy, right? So similarly here also, you can create a multiple schematics. Let us say in this example, the mass, suppose I have freezed the design, my mass and combs are finalized, okay? But I want to study the behavior of this using different kinds of spring models. So what we do, we create a new schematics for suspensions, different suspensions. One is L-shaped suspension, one is serpentine shaped suspension. So what we do now, using this subschematic import, next. Yeah. So the first suspension is taken as a hierarchy into the main schematic, that is a mass schematic, and connect to that model and run the simulation, you will get the result. Now, if I want to change beam, I need not change the complete model or parameters here. Just I will change the reference to second schematic. Next. Next. Yeah, you can see the suspension is changed. Okay, so that is the use of subschematic here. You can take one schematic reference into another schematic and you can connect them together and do the analysis. So what you benefit here is, suppose if you have a repetitive modeling, suppose I have 4 sides, 4 springs on that model, right? I need not create 4 side springs. I can create one schematic and I take that and mirror in all other sides. So the modeling is also very easy here. This subschematic will make modeling very easy. So there are some limitations in MEMS Plus, which can be done only using FEM approach in Coventrware software. Some simulations like stress simulations, like if you do a simulations, right, in MEMS Plus, you can see a displacement, but not the stress. For stress results, you have to go to Coventrware. So as I showed slides, you can directly export the model that you create in MEMS Plus to the Coventrware, run the simulation there and see the stress and other parameters. Similar way, electro-thermomechanical physics is not available, or you have high frequency bulk modes, piezoelectric resonators. These are the limitations that you have in MEMS Plus, which can be done only using the Coventrware tool that is shown in the morning. Okay, next. So this is one more good example for running a package simulations. So package also plays a major role in the MEMS area, because each device is different and each device application is different. So you need a specific custom packages for these MEMS sensors. So what happens for these packages? Generally, this operates in different applications in harsh environments, right? So suppose there is a package which is placed near the high temperature thing area or an application place. So what happens because of that high temperature? Due to thermal coefficient of expansion of the material, because of this temperature, what happens? The material will expand or contrast. Okay, so this material, because of that, there will be stresses also involved. Okay, so because of these two things, it will affect your design, because your die, your MEMS die, is sitting on top of the package. When there is a deformation happened in package, your die will also deform, which will alter your design behavior. So if you see example here, it is ST Micro 3-axis accelerometer. ST Micro is a company which makes MEMS sensors, and this is an example of 3-axis accelerometer sitting on a die. So here you are seeing the simulation called 0Z offset, right? So what is 0Z offset? So without any input, because of temperature, there is some change in output. That is what he is measuring. As I explained you, because of temperature, what happens? There is an expansion or something happens in the material, and because of stresses, there will be deformation. That deformation you are reading as some output without any input itself. So all these simulations are also possible to do in MEMS Plus. Next. So once you are done in the simulator, right? The next thing what we are seeing is now linking this MEMS Plus to either MATLAB or Simulink here. So the configuration integration is very simple. Once the configuration is done, you can take the models directly into MATLAB environment. Next. Yeah, next. Yeah, suppose if you see here on the left side one, it is a accelerometer model. Okay, it is some analog device accelerometer. This model, if I want to take it into Simulink environment, what I do in the Simulink, there is an option called MEMS Plus. Click on that option and say import, and you need not do any conversion or do anything for when you're taking model to third-party tool. It's just take the schematic that you created in MEMS Plus and just say open. The model directly comes into Simulink environment as a block. Okay, next. Now this block, how these parameters came and how do we change this variable? Suppose I have a block here. Now I want to change the width of the beam or some other parameter and other things. For that, you need not go back to MEMS Plus for every modification. Next, in MEMS Plus, there is an option called Expose. So if you see on the right side, you have a different next. Yeah. So whatever these arrows are showing the variables, right? Each one variable having a small letter called E, which means that these variables are exposed. Once these are exposed, these variables are available directly in any third-party integration softwares like MATLAB or Cadence. So now if I double click on the block there, I can see those same parameters available in the Simulink environment. So if I want to change the plate size or suspension width, I can directly change there. I need not come back to MEMS Plus to do all these modifications. Okay. Similarly, whatever the pins that you want for the block, suppose I want to give some input, I want to give some output, I want as a pins on the block, right? For this also, you have an option. Next. Yeah, you can see there. Suppose there is a comb. I want to apply voltage to this comb. I want to use this comb pin to apply voltage in Simulink environment. So what do? I just click on expose of that pin so that those pins are accessible there. So next, similar way, you have to expose whatever things you want, like inputs. Next, inputs, outputs, voltages. Next. Yeah. So once you make sure all the required things are exposed and it is available in your Simulink environment window. Next. Then you can build your schematic. Yeah, next. You can see here. So use the libraries from your Simulink environment, connect them together and create a complete system around your MEMS device connecting to it. Okay. And you run the simulation. Next. And you see the results, right? So this results now, whatever you have, you see in a 2D form. Suppose I have an accelerometer model there. I have created some circuit and run the simulation. I got this in a 2D form, but I don't know 3D behavior, right? How exactly, where is the maximum displacement, where is the minimum displacement, and how, which direction it is moving. So for that, again, there is no conversion or anything. So the result file that it generates when it runs the simulation, you can open back in MEMS Plus. Next. You can see the 3D behavior there in Sim 3D. Okay. So what we see now is a Simulink approach, right? You can also do this using a MATLAB scripting approach where no GUI, no libraries available. Directly you are doing everything using scripting. So scripting is specific to MEMS Plus, but it is very easy to write the scripting. But if once you are familiar with this, from scratching, creating material properties to ending of that results, everything, process, component libraries, modeling, actions, different analysis, running simulations, analyzing results, everything directly you can do in the scripting environment here. Okay. And some simulations like that is not directly possible in GUI. Something like if you want to create multiple loops of simulations like which I explained Monte Carlo study and all, right? These things are possible only using the scripting interface. Okay. Next. So again, this is the example for that. How scripting can be used for doing complex simulations. So if you take a wafer, in a wafer, there is a change of Young's modulus or polysilicon thickness. So when you, in a foundry, right, when you do a fabrication, it is not the same dimensions everywhere, or it is not the same properties that will happen everywhere, because the light exposure happens on wafer is not same, it is not equal, right? So that kind of study, if I want to see here, the different parameters are varied in a wafer. From blue to red, there is a range of variation on Young's modulus and polysilicon. And once you run the simulation of this, next. Next. Rakesh? Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Rakesh, can you click on next? Yeah, you can see here. So by wearing this Young's modulus and polysilicon thickness things, what is the change in drive frequency and sense polysilicon? Yeah, change in sense frequency because of polysilicon variation. It takes only 10 minutes of CPU time to compute 400 modal frequencies. You can see the advantage that you are getting here. Click on next. Yeah, so that is about MATLAB thing, right? So we'll see for cadence integration. So this will be very interesting for you to see because this is a real application. This is a DLP micro mirror from Texas Instrument. Okay, so this is a device used in projectors basically. So we'll see how this can be created in software and how you are taking advantage of multiple complex simulations using this integration with cadence. Okay, next. Yeah, similar to Simulink, right? Here, what you will build the model in Plus and do a simulations, basic simulations. For advanced simulations with your circuit and other things, you will take this model to cadence environment. Okay, once the simulation is done, you can read the results back in MEMS Plus. This is the flow. Let us see on each step how it happens. So first we build the model and do a basic simulations in MEMS Plus. On the left side, what you see is a mirror. The green, go back. Yeah, the green what you see is mirror plate. On the bottom red, whatever you are seeing, right? Those are electrodes. So when you apply voltage to those red electrodes, due to electrostatic force, what happens? The green plate, whatever you have, will start bending, depending on which side you are applying the voltage. Okay. So now I want to take this model to cadence to run simulation along with the electronics, right? So next, once you integrate MEMS Plus with cadence, you have option in cadence environment. Next, yeah, you can see in the MEMS Plus option there. Select the import option and again select the schematic and say open. Yeah, once you import, right, there will be two data share happens between here. One is first your 3D model comes as a block. Next, and you also get a P cell, parametric cell. It's a 2D layout file that comes from your MEMS Plus. Now we use this block, whatever we have here, for the simulation. Next, similar to what you see in Simulink environment, right? That's something you want to change a variable. And I explained you about an expose option. When you expose similarly, whatever things you need, the same things are available here in cadence also. Next. Yeah, next. You can see all these variables that are exposed in MEMS Plus software are accessible in cadence environment. So for all these modifications, I need not go back always. I can do directly in the cadence environment itself. That behavior is similar to what you see in the Simulink. Okay. So once you have the block ready, you connect your excitation voltage sources or whatever it is next and run the simulation. Once you run the simulation, what you have here, you have a 2D plot again, 2D results again. The same results you can open back in MEMS Plus. Next. And you can see the 3D behavior. So how this 3D model mirror design is behaving when you are applying a different voltages to each electrode. Okay. Next. So the main thing here is for every mirror design, there will be an SRAM cell built under each MEMS mirror. Okay. So that is an electronics, right? So what we do now, next, we create that SRAM cell circuit. This is the SRAM cell circuit. Next, we create the circuit in Cadence environment. So in Cadence environment, you have different libraries available. What are libraries? It is basically your electrical components like resistors, capacitors, transistors, right? So using those, you are creating a schematic of SRAM cell here. Once the cell is created, schematic is created, now you can see our from the we already have a block available in Cadence. This SRAM circuit created as a mirror model, right? Now you both mirror and SRAM cell combined together, you create a single hierarchical block. This is a single pixel. Okay. So which means that one mirror will give you a single pixel image there. So single pixel, like it's like a dot basically. To see an image, you need a multiple pixels. So what you do then? Next. Yeah. So now this single pixel will be populated into an array. Next. You see, this is the schematic. The single cell is done into 5 by 5 cross 5 array here. So each mirror is connected and those control signals are given by the sources. And you run the simulation. Next. Yeah, next. So these are the signals that you are giving to actuate. And once you run the simulation, you can see how your 3D model is behaving due to electrical excitation. Right? Here you can see you are running a simulation for not single device. You are running simulation for the entire array, 5 cross 5 array. And you are doing simulation along with the electronics. Whereas these things are not possible when you are going with conventional FEA approach. Because there you are using finite element method, the simulations are time consuming for the single device itself without electronics. And there is no third party integration availability. You cannot integrate electronics and all there. So you are getting these kind of advantages when you are using MEMS Plus here. So this software is used by leading MEMS companies and foundries across the globe. So as I told you, this software is fast and accurate. You can do up to 100 times faster simulations compared to FEA tools without compromising any accuracy of the results. And it is industry proven. As I told you, the design which I showed you earlier, right? It is done by 3-axis gyroscope done by Murata. It's a commercial available in the market, the gyroscope design. Okay, and the advantage that you are having here is co-designing, simulation of combined MEMS and IC together using MATLAB interface or Cadence environmental interface. Okay, so in the software you have different examples available. You can do multiple MEMS sensors or actuators like gyroscopes, accelerometers, switches, phones, magnetometers, bolometers, scanning mirrors, projection mirrors, and energy harvesters, a lot more. Okay, so that is about the software. This software supports Windows 10 and RHEL 7. Any doubts in the software? Anyone has any doubts? Yeah, close the slides. Any doubts in the software? Okay.
No, sir. No. We can go ahead.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, but then I wanted to understand, are you familiar with the devices called energy harvester, bolometer, or RF switches? Are you aware of the applications? Hello? Hello? Okay. So, since there is no response, what we'll do is we'll move forward then with one of the case studies. Okay.
Yeah. So morning we have seen some accelerometer example, right, on conventional FEM approach. So let us see what is that accelerometer, what are the specifications, and what are the type of simulations you will do to find the simulation results and other things. Okay. Yeah. So we'll see what is the applications of MEMS accelerometer, what is typical accelerometer specifications in across the industry that you need to address, and we'll take example of IMEC ST and sigma delta accelerometers. So we'll see what is the working mode or resonant frequency, what is the full scale range, what is damping estimate, and all other different parameters here. Next. So all these parameters go back. All these parameters are very critical in the MEMS design. What you see here. First, whenever you start to design, you need first of all what range you want it has to work. So you have to get that information. These are all the specifications that is makes accelerometer to be designed. Damping estimates. So damping plays a crucial role in the design. So what is damping? Any idea? Anybody? So damping is a behavior that happens because of a medium. So there are different kinds of dampings, like squeeze, slide, or Stokes. Basically, in a MEMS design, right, in a micro level, when you do the packaging, this damping plays a major role. It will affect your behavior. So some device like gyroscope and all, you will be having a controlled medium where your pressure of air or gas, whatever is there in the package, will be low, so that you have the optimum behavior in your sensor. So one should always take care of the damping parameters when they are doing the MEMS design. Back. Frequency response. So it is also important to find out what is the frequency response and sensitivity. Basically, what is the input and what is the output you are getting, and what is the scale of linear and non-linearity on that. And 0Z offset, which we already discussed in the previous one. What is 0Z offset? Because of no input due to thermal or any other things, there will be some offset output which is available. You will be finding that. Self-test functionality, and so what is self-test functionality is like to make the model to check whether it is behaving correctly or not. You will be having some self-test mechanism on each device. By creating an extra combs on the model, you will be taking that advantage. System stability, by adding the sigma delta modulator circuit or something, you can find how stable your device is behaving with input and outputs. And CV curve, whatever the input you give and whatever the output it comes, capacitance to voltage, or input acceleration to capacitance. Okay, so these are all the important parameters that you need to address when you are doing an accelerometer design. Coming to the application, accelerometer has wide range of applications. You can see anywhere in most of the different kinds of industries. You can see in industrial, if you see there bridge, right, you can measure the health of the bridge. If you place the accelerometers on the bridge when the vehicles are going, the vibrations on the bridge will be monitored by the accelerometer. What happens if there is suppose there is a crack or some defect happened on the bridge, let us say. So it will be detected by these vibrations. What it will show at some particular point of view, there will be a strange behavior from the sensor, which shows a different vibration has been read from the bridge. So that's a kind of industrial thing. The most used is your consumer applications, where in your cellular mobiles and other things, right? Where you are moving, rotating. Suppose you tilt your phone, the image rotates on your mobile screen, right? Or if you are playing with the gaming consoles, if you are playing with the Xbox or something, when you move your joystick or something, right? There is a movement happens on that game. So how it happens? It's basically there is a sensor, accelerometer or gyroscopes. There will be placed in that joystick. It sends the movement and vibration that happens from your hand. So that will be taken as an input, and it gives some output capacitance or something. And that output capacitance or resistance or whatever it is converted into voltage, and it will be give the respective control behavior to another action, whatever you want it for. And aerospace, this is the main crucial area where they use Air Force and Defense. Navigation and all, gyroscopes or accelerometers for measuring what is the gravitational force or what is the rotations, all these things. And one of the other applications, what you see is, if you see the laptop in consumer applications again here, most of them doesn't utilize. Earlier, we have a hard disks, right? Instead of SSDs now, which is coming now. In hard disks, what happens? The damage protection. There is a disks available, right? Where your data, whatever you create in the computer, is stored in the disks. So these disks are very sensitive. There will be a small tip on top of these disks which reads and writes the data, right? So what happens suddenly if the laptop falls or disturbs its location? What happens if even by small scratch happens on the disk, your valuable data will be lost completely. So for that, what happens here? If there is an accelerometer placed in that hard disk, what happens if it is falling down? The accelerometer detects that there is a fall happening because of that force that it is falling, right? Then what it does, it removes the tip from the disk, from the top of the disk, so that there will not be any scratch, so that your data will be protected. That is how they use in the laptop configurations. Another important thing is automotive applications. Like this is, I think you remember everybody in the cars, there will be airbag systems, right? So how they detect the accidents or anything and opens the airbag? Basically using the accelerometers. So for tilting, they use gyroscopes. For crash detection, like if you go and hit something, it opens airbag, right? Because when it is going and hit something at a force, there is a, because of acceleration force, there will be change happens on your MEMS model sensor. So that gives an output, is either capacitance or resistance output converted into voltage, and that voltage will go input to the airbag system, which will activate immediately. So there are a wide range of applications. These are very few which I am showing here, but there will be wide range of applications that will be using accelerometer nowadays. There are also a medical things coming. Even if you nowadays, if you say news and all here, an Apple Watch is protecting or saving somebody. Anybody remembered in the news that some of their parents fell down wearing a Apple Watch has given an alarm to their relatives or children saying that there is something happened. How it is? Because there is an accelerometer in the watch, Apple Watch. So when there is a fall happened or something, the accelerometer detects that fall as a force and it gives an output for the next behavior. Next. Yeah, if you see, these are the typical specifications of MEMS accelerometer. So first one is like, as I told, range. What is the range that accelerometer should work on? From watt G to watt G. What is the minimum and maximum acceleration range? Non-linearity. So when I'm varying the acceleration, right? So suppose from 1G to 10G, whether it is linearly giving me an output or it is there is some non-linearity involved, how much that non-linearity is, you have to compensate that non-linearity with some added capacitance or something, or some other designing. And package alignment errors, you have to align the device with respect to the package correctly, right? The reference frame will change otherwise. On which axis is coming the shock will be detected, right? So all this cross-axis sensitivity. What is the meaning of cross-axis sensitivity? Suppose you are having two-axis accelerometer, which means that it can detect acceleration force from x direction and y direction, let us say. So if there is a acceleration came in x direction, and there is all at the same time there is a small input from y direction acceleration that is affecting your x direction behavior also, which means that unwanted direction also is affecting your intended direction behavior. Okay, so that also you have to take into account. Cross axis sensitivity, resonant frequency. What is the resonant frequency of the structure? Why resonant frequency plays major role for any kind of mechanical devices that you work on. So that we'll see in each and every slides next on the next. Sensitivity, which I already discussed. Offset, which we already discussed. Noise. So noise also plays very important thing here because electronics also very important here. Noise is the biggest thing when you are working on these micro scale devices. So there will be parasitics, there will be mechanical noise, there will be electronics noise. So we'll see them on the next. Self-test, which I already explained you, you will be having self-test combs for checking the model behavior. So these are the typical important parameters that is for the accelerometer, which you can do using Coventor tools like MEMS Plus or Coventor both. Next. So you saw the model in the morning, right? This is the left side. What you see is the 3D model. And in this 3D model, if you see, the center one is the proof mass. The proof mass will have 4 springs on the 4 sides. So this proof mass is suspended by using the springs. So the springs ends are anchored, which means fixed, so that this mass can move. And on the left side and right side, you have a movable combs for this proof mass, and each movable will have a fixed combs on either side. Okay, so when the what happens if there is an acceleration, the mass will move. When the mass is moving, the combs attached, the movable combs that are attached to the mass will. So when it is moving, what will happen? There are 2 fixed combs on either side of this movable combs, right? So the capacitance will vary. But one side of the fixed comb to movable mass, it increases. Another side, it will be decreasing. So it is a differential capacitance. So the same thing happens on both sides of the mass. You are reading that as a output. So that is the principle here. It detects the acceleration. When there is an acceleration, the mass moves and the combs attached to the mass moves, and changes the capacitance on either side of the fixed combs, which will read as a capacitance change and converts it into an voltage. On the right side, what you see is the process flow. You can see each and every step how this model is created. So there will be a substrate. On top of that, there is electrode deposition. Then they will do the oxide deposition for patterning and other things. Then they deposit the structure layer, pattern the structure layer, then bonding pads, structure layer patterning, and sacrificial oxide release. So this is a more typical process that you follow in MEMS designs, but each MEMS design will have a different flow. Okay. Next. So here, if you want to create this model in MEMS Plus, what you do? We have a model-based approach, right there. You have a middle mass that is created using a component rigid plate. A proof mass is created using that. There is a combs component. You can use the sensing combs. Will be created from that, and self-test combs. And there will be beams will be used to model the suspension. Okay. And once the model is built, you can do the simulation and find
Minutes can you take?
Yeah, am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, next. Yeah. So if you see here, we are studying here accelerometer range and linear ready. What we do here, we vary the input acceleration. So we are doing the simulation both in Coventor and MEMS Plus. You can do this. Translation acceleration on the direction when we give 0 to 100 G. There is a change in, on the left side, what you see is a displacement. Because of the force, your mass is moving, right? That mass displacement you are seeing here. On the right side, what you are seeing is capacitance, delta C. You are getting two capacitors, right? One is increasing and one is decreasing. You will see a delta of that capacitance. Okay. So this is how you see the linearity also from this input and output. How linear the output with respect to input. Okay. So this is the one analysis what you do. And second one, as I told you, the damping that plays major role here. So here what happens, if there is a plate below, if the mass is moving with reference to the plate, you might be having a squeeze film damping between the combs. You will have the slide damping under the mass, and you will also have the Stokes flow because of so you'll calculate the damping for each section for the proof mass, for self-test combs and sense combs. Use this damping for the simulations. So this damping is calculated for a gas medium of nitrogen at 1 bar pressure and temperature is 300 Kelvin. So once you find this damping value, this will be used in the simulations for the analysis. So first simulation, what you are seeing here is the frequency response. So what is frequency response? Generally, you do a modal analysis or resonant frequency, right? You will find the resonant peak. So every geometry will have a resonant frequency. When you excite that model at that particular frequency, the device operates at its maximum capability, right? So here you will find the resonant frequency. Why? Because you are not operating your model at resonant frequency. Still you are finding this. Because you have to find the linear range where your device can read the capacitance output. If you are operating your accelerometer at resonant frequency, your output is not linear. Okay. If you want a linear output, you need to operate your accelerometer at a steady region. If you see in the top graph here, the red one, you have to operate your device in the straight line where you are having the same linear behavior, not in the peak area or at the 3 dB point. Okay, so for that reason, you have to find what is resonant frequency first. Another one is the resonant frequency also decides how what is flexible your model is, which means it will also decides the sensitivity. Okay, so high frequency and low frequency devices will change the sensitivity of your model. Okay, the frequency is too less, which means that the device is too flexible and it can detect even the lower range of your inputs. But whereas if it is increasing, it cannot detect the lower range accelerations. It can only go with the high range of acceleration. So basically, it also decides your sensitivity and range, the frequency. Okay. Next. So this is a sensitivity analysis when you are doing. This is along with the circuit in the cadence environment. You have that amplifier circuit and other things to convert again here. So if you see here, he is finding that sensitivity 18.5 millivolt per G with VDD 5 volts. You see that dot or that line where he is showing, right? So that is where he is taking that, operating that, instead of at the peak or something. Okay. So there you will have the linear output with respect to the input. Next. The same thing here. It's a noise analysis. What is noise analysis? So suppose if there is an acceleration in the low G, there is some change. You don't know whether there is because of input or because of noise, because the noise is present in the design. So you have to find what is this noise equivalent of displacement and acceleration. Okay, so this is called next Brownian noise. So this is the analytical equation matching with your simulation results. Here, if you see here, this is a displacement, noise displacement. Okay, so until this deflection, it is considered as a noise, whatever happens in the model. Okay, it can only detect anything above this. Similarly, this is the displacement, right? On the next slide, here what you are seeing is a noise equivalent force, that is your equivalent acceleration. If you do the calculation here, it is going around, what is the value it shows here, at 29.168. So until this point, where is the acceleration? Okay, so some milli-G, the value that you have here, meter per square root of heads. Okay, at this, until this acceleration value, you will have the input, whatever comes will be taken as a noise, because it will not give any output at that until then. Any value higher than whatever you calculate here, Brownian noise or noise force, equivalent force of acceleration, only be considered as an input, and you will see the some output. Only that output will be, again there will be an electronics also involved for the noise, that is which is included here when there is a circuit connected to the accelerometer model. Okay, next. So these are the self-test combs. When you apply voltage, what happens? This moves in y direction. So this is, you are indirectly, instead of giving an acceleration input, you are giving a voltage to the self-test comb so that it moves and gives the capacitance on your sense combs. So this is for the testing. So how much it displayed in the y direction when you are applied voltage of from 0 to 5 volts when you are varying is happening. So this displacement will change the capacitance in sense direction. Here there is no mechanical input. You are doing a self-test by applying voltage. Okay, next. Same way, what you are seeing displacement in the previous slide, here it is a capacitance. So whenever you apply voltage and change in the self-test, there will be some capacitance change happens. So that is what you are measuring here in the simulation. Next. Yeah. So if you see here CV curve, due to applied voltage, what is the capacitance? Comparing your simulation data with your experimental data. Already, whatever design which we are seeing now, this is already a fabricated model. And the experimental data is, you can see the comparison here. On the right side, what you see is the error of percentage. It is, you can see it is error is even less than 5% of deviation here compared to your experimental results. That is a pretty much good accuracy that you get in any software. Okay, next. So here system stability study. So when if for this sigma delta modulator circuit is connected to your accelerometer in Simulink and doing a co-simulation of your MEMS model along with sigma delta modulator circuit, run the simulation and you can see the stability of your model with force feedback control. Okay, and what you see in the right side is the filtered output, how stable your output is. Okay, next. And this is what we already discussed, 0 is the offset with respect to temperature. And the bottom green one was what package, and the blue one what you see is 3-axis accelerometer, XY accelerometer and Z-axis accelerometer. Combined together and running the package simulations, which we already see in the previous, right? Next. Yeah, this is the same simulation. 0 is the offset when there is no input involved because of temperature. What is the change in your sensor? That is 0 is the offset. So why we are telling 0 Z is because no acceleration is applied here. Okay. Next. Yeah. So we have seen right in the beginning what are the fundamental things that you need to be taken care in the design, in the specifications. So when you compare all these specifications, you see you can do all this kind of compatibility is available in the Coventor platform. You can do these simulations using both the softwares, CoventorWare and MEMS Plus. You can do the simulations, frequency response, sensitivity, full scale, 0 Z offset, or CV curve, system stability, noise, everything you can do CoventorWare and MEMS Plus. Okay, next. Yeah. So coming to the conclusion of this accelerometer, you can do complete spec of your accelerometer using both the tools, and seamlessly integration is available with your MATLAB and IC Flow for Cadence. So you can do this low cost predictive approach that enables your faster time to product, and lot of design cycles you can skip. Basically, when you're doing simulations here, right? I mentioned about parametric studies. So before going for the actual fabrication, which is costly thing in the MEMS and ASIC, you can do a simulations, parametric simulations in the software. Okay. So that is all about this accelerometer presentation. Any doubts on this? We can see few things on tutorial file, and how do we access this help and other things for the software and other things I will show you. Any doubts on this previous accelerometer presentation from anybody?
Audience, if any queries, you can.
Okay.
No, sir, no doubts. No doubts.
Someone is asking something.
Guru Baswa, sir, is there any query?
No, sir, no doubts, sir. No doubts, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So let us see first how do we access this help also. Can you open help documentation? Even from software, right? You can open this help, or in the installation part, start menu, you can open in the Coventor documentation. I will explain you what is all available in the software there.
Okay, 2-3 minutes. We just now take another topic. And then you can find some.
Okay, so this is the help documentation on Coventor MP. On the left side, if you see, there are multiple sections: Coventor MP, MEMS Plus, and Coventor Ware. So each one has their different section of tutorials available here. So in Coventor MP tutorials, you can see there is a lot of examples available here: RF switch, gyroscope, microphone, packaging effects simulations, piezoresistive, piezo energy harvester, and other things. If you go to MEMS Plus, again you have dual axis gyroscope, display mirror, and scanning mirror and other things. In Coventor, where you have again cantilever, piezoelectric resonators, F bars, microbolometer, thermal simulations on electrothermal actuators. Okay. So I have a lot more examples to explore in the software, and it is a detailed help that is available in the software. Can you click on that gyroscope or anything? I'll just want to show how the tutorial is user friendly. Yeah, you can see it is available in HTML. You can click on the next. It is a detailed step of examples which is available. You can follow those examples for easily modeling and learning the software for designing of different devices. Okay. Yeah. So there is also a search option on the top right. Suppose you have a query on something, you can just click on search there, say damping, type damping there, and click on search. It will show you all the related things in the help documentation. You can directly go and find out the explanation on what about that. You can see the equations of all this damping and everything is available in the software. What equations they use and how they calculate things. And they also explain you in detail about each and every section. on each and every parameter of the models. Okay.